Investigation was in full swing, and I was juggling meetings and trying to support Courtney as best as I could. One afternoon, Courtney came to my office, looking more distressed than usual. She told me that Brian was still texting her from different numbers. She handed me the phone to read the texts. The message read, "You can't hide from me forever, Courtney. I miss the way your hair smells. That strawberry pound cake perfume from Bath & Body Works. It's intoxicating." He went on to say that he missed seeing her all the time in lectures and talking to her in person. My stomach churned as I continued reading. He said that he knew the exact perfume she wore because after he smelled her the first time, he went into the store and bought it himself. The next messages sent a chill up my spine. He sprays the perfume on his pillow every night and imagines that Courtney is sleeping next to him. I handed her back the phone and told her that this was more than harassment. It was stalker behavior. Courtney began to break down. She said that she felt like he was everywhere. She couldn't escape him. I reassured her that she would get through this, and we were going to keep her safe. I may not have been a person of the law or a figure close to her, but she put her trust in me and shared something extremely sensitive. Hence, I was determined to do everything in my power to help her out. I told her to stay strong. During this time, Courtney stayed consistent. She continued to gather evidence against Brian and collected witness statements from the other students. They saw it, how weird Brian was treating her in class. Some asked her if she was okay after the incident, and others felt like she should have smacked him well before that time. One student even word for word stated that if Courtney gets expelled for this, he and his friends are going to boycott the university. She maintained detailed records of his behavior. I was more determined than ever to see justice served. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I was cleared of the allegations. The investigators found no evidence of any wrongdoing on my part. The weight I felt lifted off my shoulders was intense, but I knew the battle wasn't over. Courtney still needed to prove that her actions were in self-defense. The pressure was on for Courtney. The administration was analyzing every piece of evidence, and the stakes for Courtney couldn't be higher. She knew she needed to prove beyond doubt that smacking him in the head was in self-defense, especially when he had the evidence written all over his face. One afternoon, Courtney came to my office with a folder full of documents and her phone in her hand. She told me that she thought she had enough proof to explain to the investigators. Even though her words showed she was ready, the pitch of her voice said otherwise. I looked over everything, and I found something that solidified her case completely. In one of the recent explicit pictures that Brian sent to her from a random number, I noticed a small birthmark on his right hand, and I told her if we could prove that he had that exact same birthmark in person, I was sure they would listen to her. We went to the dean's office together. As we sat down, Courtney handed over the folder to the investigation team. Inside were screenshots of all the messages Brian and her sent, both from his number and the numbers on the anonymous app. She also had written statements from her fellow students who witnessed his behavior and felt uncomfortable around him. She highlighted key messages that show his escalation over time. She showed them how he started with inappropriate comments and then moved to explicit texts. And then she showed her phone and presented the texts from the anonymous number, including the one where he described buying the same perfume she wore. The investigators reviewed the evidence carefully. Each screenshot painted a clear picture of Brian's obsession and harassment. The written statements from other students backed Courtney's claims tremendously. They realized that Brian had shown a pattern of disturbing behavior from not only Courtney, but other female students in the class. After showing the pictures of Brian, she said that he had a birthmark on his right hand and that they could check it out for themselves. She then pulled out something else that we hadn't talked about previously. She showed them a video that her friend had recorded of Brian following her around campus. In the video, you can clearly see Brian lurking behind her, trying to get close without being noticed. The room was silent as the video played. It was unmistakable. One of the investigators finally spoke. They said that it was compelling evidence and that it was clear that she hit him in self-defense. The dean nodded. She said that her response in hitting him was extreme, yet justified. I could see Courtney's shoulders relax slightly. I knew that the weight of weeks of anxiety began to lift. She thanked them, and tears began to form in her eyes as she held her mouth. The administration made their decision. Brian would be put under strict watch, prohibited from any contact with Courtney, and required to attend counseling sessions. Courtney, meanwhile, was cleared of any wrongdoing, and measures were put in place to ensure her safety on campus. As we left the dean's office, Courtney thanked me profusely and told me that she couldn't have done it without my help. It felt good to get my student out of some trouble so that she could finally feel safe attending class. I smiled back at her and told her she had worked hard, and now it was paying off. Courtney nodded. The ordeal had been grueling, but she had proven her strength and resilience, and as her professor, I felt honored to have stood by her side. I was reinstated, and my return to the classroom was met with warm smiles and relieved faces. Courtney and I maintained a cordial relationship and kept our interactions strictly professional. Despite the challenges, I was pleased to have supported a student in need and to have cleared my name. Weeks later, as I graded the final exams, I wasn't surprised to see Courtney's name at the top of the class. She had not only survived the ordeal, but had also excelled academically. On the last day of the semester, I returned the graded exams. When I handed Courtney her paper, she took a breath of relief. She had passed with an A. The experience left a lasting impact on both of us. Courtney found some relief in the resolution, slowly returning her confidence. As for me, I gained a renewed sense of purpose. My role as an educator was not just to impart knowledge, but to protect and support my students.